Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play the Final Fantasy Legend. In the last part we got to the 4th world and now we're fighting Dokuros, which is actually just skull outright in Japanese if I recall correctly. Dokuros have 368 HP, they're undead so they're weak to fire, but this one is protected from para and weapon. It has a bone attack and it has a mirror attack which more or less ups its hit multipliers. Not a very hard enemy, 1200 gold for beating it, which is pretty good, so it's not the worst encounter you can encounter around here, that is for certain. Though I'm only now realizing, the skull kind of lineup of enemies looks oddly like a red mage. Let's search. And this is automatic. They're actually going right to where we need to go in the library to find Akiba, because that's what we were doing here. Found it. Akiba's 14 blocks to the east and 15 blocks to the north. That's from the library's tile, by the way. Also, check the bookshelf below us to find a stone book. Stone is one of the only really useful spells in the game because it's more or less an instant death spell. However, there's not many enemies I recommend using it against, mostly just magic users. So that's going to stay in my inventory for a little bit while we fight the next new enemy, Lamias, who I actually want the meat from. Lamias have 409 HP, they're lizard-type enemies, they have tail, strict, drain, fire, and gaze. Nothing too deadly, but it could have been worse. If you have a slime-type enemy, like I do in my party, I believe at this point, yeah, I do, it could be potentially lethal, but thankfully they don't use it too often in my experience. But yeah, we want to get this thing's meat for envy, actually, because while chimeras are useful, at this point, enemies are doing enough damage that its HP and defenses are just falling behind, so it's time to get Envy a nice upgrade to one of my favorite monsters in the game, actually. Also, something about the Lamia sprite always bothered me, I don't know what. Either way, let's give that to Envy to change her into an him into an Iron Man. Iron Man's one of my favorite monsters in the game, because first off, it has decent HP, and as we take a look at its abilities, look at that mana and strength and defense. Good lord, it's so good. Kick, bash, flame, and gas are great attacks. It's protected from change, which is more or less instant death. And damage, which means it's protected from more or less every element. It is so good. I love this thing's series of robots. Well, it's not a robot. It's more like it's not a robot. It's more like a golem. There we go. That's what it is. But yeah, we want to go the amount of spaces that it said east, which is to the middle of this hall, and just head straight north after that. And eventually you'll come to Akiba right here. Amayoko's another town. And we're going to grab some stuff here. Revive first off, which is pretty good. If you didn't get a Lamia meat in the field, by the way, you can still encounter them in this little Akiba area. I know for a fact I actually forget to open this one because I thought I did, but I didn't get the item afterwards. That contains X potions. So if you want to get it, that's what's in there. Next enemy up is a Marvel villain syndicate, Hydra. These things have 409 HP? Yeah. Weak to fire, protected against weapon, tail, forehead, and gas. Forehead, I think, is a pretty damaging move, so watch out for that. But if it uses gas or tail, don't feel too bad. 1600 gold, though. This is around the time where the enemies really just start giving you more money than you can really deal with using. It is very easy to get money in this game once you're past, like, World 2. For some reason, I've always felt that Akiba here actually has a higher encounter rate than most places. I don't know why. Either way, here we do get something pretty useful. A cat craw. It's supposed to be a cat claw, if you can't tell. The cat craw, I'll eventually be giving that to Callista, because it's a pretty powerful weapon. And in this room is actually what we came here for, the reason we came to Akiba. In this chest is a ROM, Space Knight. No, just a read-only memory. For some reason, I have strange memories of reading ROM Space Knight as a kid, and I don't know why. Either way, Amayoko, the next town, is actually right up here. They mentioned this back in the first town. And I want to buy some stuff here. First off, Dragon Swords, which is a pretty powerful weapon on its own, yes, but it's also very good because if you use it against Dragon-type, or technically Lizard-type enemies, I think, it is an instant kill every now and then. Well, it's not a guaranteed instant kill. It has a pretty decent chance of being it, though. And I want to get a Geta shoe for Callista, because that increases her defense a decent chunk, as well as, I want to say her strength as well? Or at least it does not. It doesn't just do defense. I think it's supposed to do agility as well, or something. I forget. Also, don't be surprised if by next part the P-Knife is gone, because honestly, the P-Knife around now is pretty low in damage compared to everything else. That's the one thing about a fairly short RPG, is that the damage gets boosted so high so quickly that some enemies, some weapons lose use very quickly. Do you need a board? What ROM do you have? You need this board for that ROM? Okay, that was a thing. But we get a board. And that's okay, music's out of tune again. That is the next mandatory item we need in order to continue on our quest. With that, though, what to do next is a bit iffy. You're supposed to head back to the main town. However, I don't think they tell you that until you do it yourself. So what I'm going to do is head down here, and this leads you on a nice little chain of underground passages that eventually lead you to the library, in which case I was going to cut back to you here anyway, so I just saved you guys the trouble. So let's go talk to Socho. Next is plutonium for energy. Tomorrow we go to the atomic plant. Or now. That's good too. Weren't you gonna mention it to them? No. They'll be better off. Okay, never mind. Are you going to leave us behind? We'll come with you. Okay, that was a weird story. Admittedly, that is one of my problems with the game. Due to the fact that there's like 5 different stories going on, the main story and then each of the world's individual stories, not a lot of development is put into each one. Either way, here we got a few new enemies: gunfish, ice crabs, and sorcerers. Gunfish have 330 HP, they're water elemental, weak to electricity, immune to fire, bite, and squirt, same one we had earlier, actually. Ice crabs have 330 HP, water elemental, but they only have pincer and a paralysis skin ability, so that could be potentially annoying. And the sorcerers, the things they already killed, have 330 HP, humanoid enemy, but they actually have access to elect and fire, which is pretty annoying, actually. I forget which one, but something along the steward, magician, sorcerer line has access to death, and that sucks. I think it's the last enemy in that line, though. Either way, we actually have to get out of the bike to talk to them. And I'm just checking Lucy's stats because it's a good thing to do that. Let's jump! Okay, yeah, you actually do have to talk to him for you to do that for some reason. Getting off the bike is weird. We'll handle it from here. I'll wait for you. Okay, now you can actually avoid encounters in this area by just staying on the water. Because it's not technically counted as a normal walkable tile, so therefore they don't have any encounter data put onto it. Either way, next new enemy is a thorn. Thorns have 368 HP, immune to poison, tentacle, bite, drink, and strict. So that can be potentially annoying just based off the fact that they can either constrict you or take HP away and restore their own, but nothing too annoying. I still wonder what the hell's going on with the plant enemy sprites, though. It honestly reminds me a bit of Real Monsters. I don't know why. I think it's the fact that the eyes are so googly. It reminds me of that one who held his eyes in his hands. I didn't like that show that much growing up. And honestly, going back, I can see why, because that was one of the more crude Nicktoons, all things considered. It was more so one of those shows that was kind of wacky just for the sake of being wacky. And I can respect that, but it wasn't my cup of tea back then, and honestly, to an extent, isn't to this day. Either way, next new enemies are dinosaurs and ninjas. That's another combination. Dinosaurs, for some reason, have the wrong sprite on the Final Fantasy Wiki. Okay. 501 HP, weak to ice, immune to weapon, nail, bite, and tail, nothing too bad. Ninjas have 262 HP, they have a katana attack, and they can blind you. That blind attack is probably more annoying than their actual physical attack, though they have decent strength of about 33. But their agility is the highest thing they got at 45. Yeah, the resource I'm using, obviously, for the stats is the Final Fantasy Wiki, so I do have access to a lot of their individual stats. But more often than not, it's not too important unless I state, like, yeah, they have pretty high defense, so you might want to use magic, that kind of thing. And even then, for the most part, in this game, you can make it through just by using whatever attack you want. As long as it's a powerful one, you can kill most things pretty quickly. Which, admittedly, is a bit of a point against the game, because that means you can't strategize as well, but, I'll let it go. Either way, we have to get into this attack with, this fight, rather, with this Evil Eye. Reminds me of Eagle Eye. That was a strange movie. Evil Eyes have 606 HP, immune to Quake, Warning, Gaze, Beam, and Flash. Not a very interesting enemy, though we do want to get their meat eventually. I didn't get it there, but I do want to get it whenever I can next. Also, don't fall off the edge because you'll go right back into that the cave area we were in earlier. Also, I'd recommend saving around now because things are about to happen. Also, you can throw away the armor board if you want to at this point, I believe. I don't think you need them past getting into here. Oh, well, those things are different from the rest. Oh, hey, Socho. I finally caught up with ya. Yes? What are you going to do about that? Oh, that's why. He actually blocks us in. That's why I recommend saving. That's right. Leave it to me. Ow. 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 I'm dead. Socho! I've shown you a real man, haven't I? You fool! You didn't have to do that. This band. Look after my sister. Now, he actually did just give us a headband, and the headband is more or less the best piece of headgear in the game. And because of that, I'm actually going to be getting rid of something for Lucy. I forget what. Probably the stone book, because you don't really need it. Also, at this point, you might as well give her the suit of armor, because the reason I kept around the dragon armor for this long to begin with was because of its elemental defenses. But at this point, it's just better to have the suit of armor for its pure defense. Yeah, that's right, to get rid of stone. The headband is really good, because that just upped my defense by about 25, I think. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. But it's really good. It's the best piece of headgear in the game, that at least as far as I'm aware of. So, once you grab it, give it to whoever has the lowest defenses that you can give it to, at least. And this little thing here is your goal. By the way, I recommend saving, because we're coming up on a potentially annoying boss fight. And you have to get out of your bike to investigate this thing for some reason. We found plutonium! Let's use it to complete Erase 99, so we can neutralize the force field. Intruder alert! Get him! Get him! Boss fight for this little mini area is Machine, which is actually more or less War Mech. From Final Fantasy 1. 1000 HP, immune to change, so no instant death. Can access dash, beam, T-beam, laser, Balkans, missiles, and a nuclear bomb. This thing is actually very powerful if it gets head attacks off on you. But honestly, it's not too bad. Well, technically speaking, I think this is like Death Machine, but it's closer to War Mech in this game's case, really, especially in terms of design. Actually, yeah, it's exactly War Mech, apparently, according to the Final Fantasy Wiki, because I do almost always have the Final Fantasy Wiki up on standby if I need to look up something. But yeah, that's the end of that. That was kind of anticlimactic. Oh, how the mighty have fallen one game later in America. And now we're back at the first town, okay, and everyone's dead. And I mean that, everyone is actually dead. Except for the innkeeper, because it'd be kind of dickish if they took away access to an inn. Either way, what you're supposed to do here is actually go grab the bike, but I'm just gonna cut out that because that you can actually encounter random encounters in the town now that that's happened. And where we have to go next is the skyscraper, but they never really tell you about that. You have to head up here and enter the place where the bike cannot. And the skyscraper is actually a very interesting area. Our goal is to go up and then back down, but you'll see that later. And these are elevators. If you exit to either one or the other side, you'll be taken up or down. And now for secret passageway shenanigans. I hate this room because what you're supposed to do is obviously find the hidden passage. But doing so can be kind of annoying because the controls in this game are better than like Dragon Quest in terms of movement. But it sticks a bit more than I'd like to admit sometimes. See, look, I was holding up there. Why wasn't I going up until then? Ugh. Either way, we could actually exit from this area right away, but I actually do want to get some treasure chests in this little side room here. And by some, I mean one. In here we get hypers. Hypers are more or less glorified I win buttons, but we'll get into that in a moment because we have Mojas, I think? Yeah, Mojas. Mojas have 330 HP, they're undead, so they're weak to fire and immune to ailments. Nail, poison, and poison fang, so they'll actually very likely poison you during the battle. Hypers are very rare. You can only really buy them in Amayoko or you can find those 3 here at the skyscraper. It's a 3-use item, and you can sell it for 100,000, which is pretty good, all things considered. And what it does? Instant kill on all enemies, no matter what, except for, boss fights more than likely. I think the only way you can instant kill bosses that isn't, like, certain weaknesses they might have is the saw method. Because that glitch I mentioned, I think it was the last part. But good on them. Not all the bosses go down in one shot like they did more or less in Final Fantasy 1 sometimes. But, I have problems with that, somewhat. I like it when I can instant kill a boss, I'm not gonna lie. Kinda reminds me of Guy Natak from Final Fantasy 7. I always use either a Phoenix down or an X-Potion on that guy. And now you're actually seeing me count the steps I need in order to get to the giants, apparently. Yeah, I'm just going straight for the exit from here, but yeah, we did encounter giants. 454 HP, access to punch, kick, elect, and ice, so they actually have decent elemental coverage. But in my experience, they rarely ever use it. These guys actually do have decent strength, though, so watch out for that. Their physical attacks really do hurt. But nothing too horrible. Running into 4 of them could potentially be very bad, because you want to get as much damage on them as possible. But I've run into worse encounters in this game, especially towards endgame. But I have to say, overall, one thing I have to say about this game that I like is that even towards endgame, sometimes the battles don't take that long. Some of them can go upwards of 2 to 3 minutes, which is a bit long for an RPG, but random battle in my mind, but what am I gonna do? Now, these things actually, these things sprite reminds me of something, but I can't exactly place it on what. It might be something from, like, Yu Yu Hakusho, for all I know. Actually, it could be Inuyasha, from the very few times I've watched that. Either way, one thing I do have to say about the skyscraper is that it might just be the longest non-main tower area in the game, because there's actually a good amount of floors to this place. Which, mind you, considering this is the land of the 4th Fiend, it should have the longest out of the main dungeons, but still. Either way, next new monster is Snowcat. Snowcats have 368 HP, weak to fire, immune to ice, though. Tusknail, and get this, ice. Nothing too terrible, decently high agility by the looks? No, or is that defense? That is agility. But you should be going faster than them at this point anyway, because of how fast your human should be if you have one. Actually, there is one thing I'm surprised I haven't mentioned at this point. The monsters. There are some that are exclusive to transformations, because they never either didn't put them in any areas you could access, or they just never show up as random battles at all. Which I like, makes some of the more unique monsters feel unique by only having them be transformations. That makes me feel incomplete for not running into as many enemies as I could, but oh well. It's gonna make the eventual Final Fantasy IV LP hell, because I'm gonna go for 100% main game bestiary, I think. Either way, next new enemy is, I think it's Demon? Yeah. Demons, aside from being my family, have 454 HP. They're undead, however, they're immune to fire and quake, and they have access to nail, sleep, and get this, fire. Decent stats all around the table, though, all mid-50s, so nothing too terrible. 1,600 gold, too, but the big thing about these guys is that they often show up with groups of, like, 3 to 4 in my experience. So they'll be throwing a lot of power your way. Also, don't feel bad about using elixirs, because one of the only other store in the game that's after this point sells them for fairly cheap. Oh, inventory limits, I hate them, but I can get rid of the ROM and the board. If only they could get rid of the Borg, that would have made Star Trek The Next Generation a lot simpler at times. Especially, what was the movie? It was like Star Trek 8, I think? Or was it 7? No, it was definitely 8 because it was a good movie. This is actually another bit of a hidden puzzle room. I think there's invisible walls all around you, so you need to just find the way around. If you just follow me, though, you should find it no problem. And a lot of these doors are either fake or just lead to empty rooms, I think. This is the door we want to enter, though. And at this point, we're actually heading back down through the tower because we want to. But you do want to go to this little secret passageway, though, and end up in this room to grab this item, which I believe is something I could equip. I love how elixirs can heal status ailments, by the way. Really good. Oh, no, it's just more elixirs. Okay, then that was definitely worth it. Either way, next new enemy is, I think, a mistranslation. I think it's supposed to be Killer, but instead it is the Kellers. 501 HP, have access to Axe, Saw, I think it's Electric Whip, and Poison. And I think it's the exact same Saw they have, but it's not likely to work because I think their defense... Oh no, they have 36 defense, so it actually could very well work on us. But it's not likely to because they have very pitiful HP, all things considered, and especially in like low numbers, they're very easy to kill. And because of that low defense, yeah, that they take a lot of damage. And I think with that, we're about done with the main parts of the tower. No, we're not. Although this floor is a bit trippy. Stairs. Stairs everywhere. God, this would be a nightmare in a Dragon Quest game. But, as you might expect, only one or two of them is real. The more real one to go down is right here, and now we're underneath the tower. I have no idea what those tiles are supposed to be right there, by the way. You can encounter one enemy around here, Behemoth, but I didn't, and if you do, run from it, because it's pretty powerful. And now we're in the trains, I'm guessing the underground railroads that we were going around is supposed to be running on. Now, there are some things in here you want to encounter. Namely, we're coming up on a female NPC. It looks like a female mutant. In fact, I think it is. That is a fixed encounter point. Well, first off, do I talk to this guy? Yes, I do. Where is Suzaku? To your left. Okay, then. Thank you. Yeah, we're coming up on a female mutant NPC. She is a fixed encounter point against Evil Eyes, and I want to get its meat for one of my monsters. You can fight it as many times as you want, so it shouldn't take you too long to get. And I kill it, and then I give that meat to someone. I forget who, though. Envy, so now she's pudding. He's pudding. And it's just another... it's actually one of the best slime-type monsters, because look at that mono. That is great stuff. More or less the same abilities that we've seen at this point, except this one can give us sneak attacks, which is pretty good. And then around here, there is an enemy known as a Minotaur. Looks like the Catwoman enemy. Here's one right here. And I want to get its meat. However, this took me a good while, actually, because in this battle, I didn't even get the meat. I got the dragon something's meat that was in that battle. And I want to get that to Kane to change him into a Wraith. Wraiths are more or less crowd control, because they have sleep, which is, you know what it does. Ice and touch. Touch is an attack similar to Drain, or not Drain, Melts. It just saps enemies' HP away and into him. But the big Wraith advantage is that they're immune to more or less everything. And I'm actually in the car after that female NPC, but because it took me a while to run into the thing. And with that, we can just walk to the end of the train. Yeah, surprisingly for a train, not a lot of resistance for us. Let her go. Where did they go? Up. You can't get away. You are finished. Use the machine. And you do actually have to use the Eraser 99. I think otherwise if you walk into him, it's the same as it's always been. You fool, your force field is useless. And thus our fight against the fourth fiend begins. Suzaku is actually much weaker after you use the Erase 99. 1500 HP versus 5000, so that's the big difference there. It only has a few attacks too. Beak and Flame are the only attacks it can do damage to you with. It has Blind as well, and it's immune to fire and ailments. But honestly, it's a very easy fight. Honestly, in fact, I'd say it's the easiest out of the four fiends that we fight so far. It could potentially be the longest, but honestly, it's not that bad. We get a good chunk of gold for beating him too, 6,500. You'd think for being more or less a phoenix, even though I know it's different from a phoenix, that the Vermilion Bird would be a lot harder than most, but no, it's pretty easy. And you can actually get meat for beating him, which I really want to eat on Kane by Wraith, but we get Fireman in return, which is one of my favorite monsters in the game, and potentially one of the last transformations you should get. I made it! Lucy, you're great! Okay, that's odd dialogue. Thanks for everything. My brother may be in heaven. Oh, by the way, here's what I found. Sphere! And we get the fourth sphere. The dialogue there was very stilted and weird. I'm fine. I'm the next Socho, which is apparently a rank. Weird. Either way, yeah. But we got Fireman, which is one of my favorite monsters in the game. 95 strength, 93 mana, so it's great. Great physical attacks. Burning, which more or less burns enemies to the touch. Tornado's not that good. It's one of the few abilities that targets all enemies. That has an element. It's Ice Elemental, so that's not the best. But honestly, Fireman's awesome. I'd recommend keeping him for the rest of the game if you can. I'm going to change him probably later on, but if you can keep him like that, do it. It's great. Either way, with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 8, we will be trekking through the rest of the tower and seeing what awaits us at the end of our path. See you guys then.